Ladies and gentlemen, today I stand before you to share a powerful truth. God is rewriting your path. I want you to hear me clearly. Life doesn't always go according to the plans we make. In fact, it often feels like we are on a winding road with detours, setbacks, and moments of confusion. But I'm here to tell you that in these very moments, God is rewriting your path. Life is a journey, and for many of us, that journey is far from a straight line. We all have dreams, plans, and goals that we want to see fulfilled, but often the reality is quite different from what we imagined. Sometimes we find ourselves on paths we didn't choose, facing challenges we didn't anticipate, and experiencing setbacks that leave us feeling lost. But here's a profound truth that we need to embrace. God is rewriting our path. In moments of confusion and frustration, we tend to ask ourselves, why is this happening? We might wonder if we've made the wrong choices, taken the wrong turns, or if we're simply off track. But we need to understand that God is never caught by surprise by the twists and turns in our lives. In fact, those very detours could be His divine plan for our lives. We must remember that God, in His infinite wisdom, knows the end from the beginning, and sometimes He uses detours to redirect us to where we need to be, even when we don't fully understand it at the time. We all go through seasons where things seem to fall apart or plans don't unfold as we expected. It's easy to get discouraged when the road ahead looks nothing like what we envisioned. Yet, we must recognize that these moments of uncertainty are often the places where God is working most powerfully in our lives. It's in these times that He redirects us, reshapes us, and guides us toward a greater purpose. Life may not always go the way we planned, but God's plan for us is always greater than we could imagine. It's easy to think that we know what's best for our lives, and when things don't go according to our vision, we feel like we've lost control. But the reality is that our understanding is limited. We can't see the bigger picture as God does. We can't foresee the future and all the opportunities, challenges, and experiences that lie ahead. God sees the whole path, the entire journey from start to finish, and He knows exactly where He's taking us, even if we can't see it at the moment. When life doesn't go the way we expect, we can become frustrated or discouraged, but these detours may actually be the very means through which God is positioning us for something greater. Sometimes we need to go through a season of waiting, of uncertainty, or even a period of failure to prepare us for what's to come. God doesn't waste our pain, our disappointments, or our struggles. He uses them to mold us, to teach us, and to build our faith in ways we could never imagine if everything was smooth sailing. Our lives are not merely about our own plans and desires. They're about fulfilling the purpose that God has designed for us. This purpose often unfolds in unexpected ways, through experiences and challenges that push us out of our comfort zones and into the life we were truly meant to live. We may try to make our own plans, but ultimately God's purpose is what will prevail. His purpose for our lives is so much more fulfilling, so much more significant than anything we could ever plan for ourselves. When we stop trying to control every aspect of our lives and trust that God is rewriting our path, we open ourselves up to a life filled with purpose and destiny. Sometimes, when we're in the midst of transition, it feels like we're stuck, like we're not moving forward at all. But the truth is, transition is often the place where God does His deepest work in us. It's in the midst of change, uncertainty, and even struggle that God prepares us for the next phase of our journey. Transition is not always comfortable, but it is always necessary for growth. Just as a seed must break open to become a tree, we too must go through periods of transformation to step into the fullness of who we were created to be. When God rewrites our path, He is not simply altering our circumstances, He is transforming us. It is through these moments of change that God refines our character, builds our strength, and increases our faith. Our faith is tested and strengthened as we walk through these seasons, and it's through this process that we become the people we are meant to be. When we find ourselves in the midst of uncertainty or unexpected change, it's important to remember that faith is the fuel that carries us forward. When we walk by faith, we trust that God is guiding us, even when we can't see the full picture. We trust that His ways are higher than ours. that His timing is perfect, and that every detour is part of His plan for our lives. Faith allows us to move forward with confidence, even when the path seems unclear, knowing that God is with us every step of the way. God's ways are higher than our ways, and His thoughts are deeper than our thoughts. The path He has for us may look nothing like the one we imagined, but it will always lead us to a place of fulfillment, purpose, and divine destiny. Sometimes, God's redirection takes us to unexpected places, but we can rest in the assurance that He is leading us to exactly where we need to be. His path for us is not only for our good, but for His glory. So when life doesn't go the way you expect, when the road ahead is unclear, or when everything seems to fall apart, trust that God is rewriting your path. Trust that He is using every moment, every detour, every challenge to lead you to the place where you will fulfill your purpose. Even when you don't understand it, know that God is in control and He is guiding you toward your divine destiny. There will be times in life when the road ahead feels uncertain, when the plans you've so carefully crafted begin to fall apart, and when your vision of the future becomes clouded by confusion. In those moments, it's easy to feel lost, to question the direction you're headed, and to wonder whether things will ever come together. Yet, in the midst of these trials, there is a deeper truth that we must hold on to. Trust in the process. Even when things seem unclear, when the road ahead looks like it's full of obstacles and uncertainties, God is still in control, and He is guiding you, even if you can't see it. It's human nature to want to understand everything. We want to know what's next, why things are happening the way they are, and how our lives will unfold. But God's ways are not always about giving us immediate clarity or answers. His plan is often more intricate and detailed than our minds can comprehend. Sometimes He allows us to walk through seasons of uncertainty to develop our trust in Him. In those times, we must let go of the need for control and learn to trust that God knows exactly what He's doing. Trusting in the process means understanding that God is not only working through the good times, but also through the difficult ones. We can't always see the purpose behind our struggles, but trust requires us to believe that every circumstance, every moment of confusion, and every setback is a part of a larger divine plan. God doesn't waste any part of our journey. He uses both the easy and hard times to shape us, to teach us, and to guide us into the destiny He has planned for us. Even when things seem chaotic, even when we feel like we've lost our way, we must trust that God is working behind the scenes to bring everything together for our good. Often we want to rush through the hard times. We don't like feeling uncomfortable, uncertain, or out of control. But the truth is, those moments are sometimes the most important for our growth. When things are smooth, when everything falls into place easily, we may not learn the lessons we need to learn. It's when we go through challenging seasons that God builds our character, strengthens our faith, and teaches us perseverance. These moments are refining us, preparing us for the greater things He has in store for us. The process may not always be easy, and it may not always make sense in the moment, but trust is the key that unlocks the door to God's perfect plan. Trusting God through the confusion and the uncertainty means choosing to believe that He is working everything out, even when we don't understand it. It's about letting go of our own timelines and our own ideas of how things should happen and surrendering to His will. When we trust in the process, we are acknowledging that His plan is far greater than our understanding, and His timing is always perfect. Consider the seasons in nature. There are times of growth, times of waiting, and times of harvest. Just as a tree doesn't produce fruit overnight, our growth and transformation often requires seasons of patience and trust. We may not see the fruit of our labor immediately, but we must trust that the seeds being planted today will bear fruit in the future. God is working in us and through us, even when we can't see the immediate results. As we go through life, we must remember that trusting in the process doesn't mean that we'll always have all the answers. There will be moments when we don't understand why things are happening the way they are, when it feels like we are being pushed to our limits. But in those moments, God's hand is still guiding us, His purpose is still unfolding, and His plan is still moving forward, even if it seems hidden from our eyes. Our job is to trust that He is faithful, that He is good, and that He has our best interests at heart. We live in a world that values instant results and immediate answers. But in God's kingdom, the process is often slow, steady, and intentional. The breakthroughs, the growth, and the victories we experience are the results of walking through the process with faith. Every step, every challenge, every season of waiting is part of the divine plan that is shaping us into who we are meant to become. When the road ahead seems unclear or the plans you've made fall apart, remind yourself that God is still in control. Trust that His plan is greater than your understanding and that He is guiding you through the process with a purpose. Even when you can't see the whole picture, trust that He sees it clearly and is leading you exactly where you need to go. God's hand is at work in your life, and His timing, His methods, and His plan will always prove to be greater than anything you could have imagined for yourself. Trust in the process, for it is the path that leads to the fulfillment of your divine purpose. Too often we focus solely on our plans, the goals we set, the steps we take to achieve them, and the milestones we envision reaching. Our society often teaches us that success is about following our own blueprint for life, pushing hard for personal achievements, and making our dreams a reality. However, there's a deeper truth that we must understand. Life is not merely about what we want to do, but about fulfilling the purpose that God has designed for us. While our plans may fail or shift, God's purpose for our lives will never fail. At times we may find ourselves fixated on what we think our lives should look like. We create our plans based on our desires, expectations, and even societal pressures. We build careers, pursue relationships, and make decisions based on what we believe will bring fulfillment and success. But the reality is that our personal plans, no matter how well thought out, can falter. Plans can be disrupted by unforeseen events, detours, or circumstances beyond our control. And when this happens, we may feel as though we've lost our way or failed to achieve what we set out to do. Yet here lies a profound truth. Even when our plans fall apart, God's purpose for our lives remains intact. God is not bound by the same limitations as us. He sees beyond our failures and mistakes, and He is never caught off guard by the twists and turns of life. God's purpose for us is eternal, and it's greater than any plan we could ever devise. His purpose isn't subject to the fluctuations of circumstances, nor is it swayed by our disappointments. No matter what happens, God's purpose will prevail. The beauty of this truth is that even when our plans fail, God is still working behind the scenes, redirecting us, guiding us, and ultimately positioning us to fulfill His divine purpose for our lives. We may not always understand how things are unfolding, but we must remember that God is in control. His purpose is the true driving force of our lives, and it's always leading us to something greater than what we could have imagined for ourselves. This shift from pursuing our own plans to embracing God's purpose requires a shift in mindset. We must learn to let go of our limited vision and trust that God has a plan that far exceeds our own. Our plans may only provide temporary satisfaction, but God's purpose leads us toward lasting fulfillment and eternal significance. When we focus on fulfilling God's purpose, we find true meaning, joy, and peace, even in the midst of challenges and uncertainty. It's important to recognize that God's purpose for our lives is not always aligned with our desires or expectations. There may be times when His purpose takes us down a path we didn't expect, a path that requires sacrifice, patience, or stepping outside of our comfort zones. But the truth is, God's purpose is always designed for our ultimate good. His ways are higher than our ways, and His thoughts are deeper than ours. What seems like a detour in our lives may actually be the very thing that brings us closer to His purpose for us. In the Bible, we see countless examples of people whose plans were interrupted or disrupted, yet they ultimately stepped into the fullness of God's purpose for their lives. Joseph's dreams of greatness were shattered when he was sold into slavery, yet God used that difficult time to prepare him for a position of authority that would save nations. Moses had a plan to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, but he was first called to a wilderness experience that tested his faith and leadership. Even when their plans seemed to fail, they trusted in God's greater purpose and were ultimately used to fulfill His divine will. When we focus on our plans, we are often driven by the need for success, approval, or personal achievement. But when we focus on fulfilling God's purpose, we shift from seeking our own glory to seeking His. We are no longer just chasing after what we think will bring us happiness. We are aligning our lives with the greater good that God has designed for us. This shift in focus is not about abandoning our dreams, but about surrendering them to God and trusting that His plans will lead us to something far better than we could have imagined on our own. It is in surrendering our own plans and embracing God's purpose that we truly experience the fulfillment that comes from walking in alignment with His will. God's purpose for us is a lifelong journey, and while it may not always be easy or straightforward, it is always worth it. It's through this journey that we discover our true identity, our God-given gifts, and our unique role in His kingdom. As we step into His purpose, we experience the joy and peace that comes from knowing that we are exactly where we are meant to be. So let us remember, your life is not merely about what you want to do, but about fulfilling the purpose that God has set before you. Your plans may fail, and your dreams may seem unfulfilled, but God's purpose will never fail. He is faithful, and He will bring His purpose to pass in your life. As you trust in His greater plan, you can rest in the assurance that He is guiding you towards something far greater than you could ever achieve on your own. When God rewrites your path, it's not simply a change in direction, it's a process of transformation. Too often we focus on the outward circumstances, a new job, a different city, a shift in relationships, or a change in our health. But the real work that God is doing in these transitions is happening on the inside. In every transition, God is not only redirecting our steps, but also reshaping our character. It's in these moments of change that we are given the opportunity to evolve into the person we were always meant to be. Transition, by its very nature, often involves uncertainty and discomfort. It's a process that takes us out of our comfort zones, shaking up the familiar and introducing new challenges that can feel overwhelming. But when we understand that God uses these times to transform us, we can begin to see them not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth. Consider the process of a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. There is a time of cocooning, a period where the caterpillar is in transition, isolated and completely transformed. In that time, the caterpillar doesn't simply change direction, it undergoes a profound internal transformation that enables it to fly. The external change is simply a reflection of the internal transformation that has taken place. So it is with us. The transitions in our lives may seem difficult or even painful, but they are the very moments when God is working to change us from the inside out, preparing us to soar into the next season of our lives. Transition forces us to confront things about ourselves that we may not have been able to see before. It reveals our weaknesses, our insecurities, and our fears. Yet, in these moments, God is refining us. He is purifying our hearts, strengthening our faith, and building our character. It's easy to remain the same when everything is going well. But it's in the difficult seasons, the transitions, that we are stretched, challenged, and made more like Christ. When God rewrites our path, He often leads us into new seasons where we must learn to rely on Him in ways we never have before. In these seasons, we discover a deeper level of trust, a greater dependence on His guidance, and a more profound understanding of His faithfulness. What once seemed like a detour or disruption may very well be the catalyst for the transformation God is orchestrating in our lives. It is also important to recognize that transition is never wasted. Even when it feels like we are being pushed into something we don't fully understand, God is using it to bring about something better. Every experience, every challenge, every change is a piece of the puzzle that is forming the person we are meant to be. If we resist the transition, if we refuse to move forward or hold on too tightly to the past, we miss out on the transformation that God wants to bring about in us. But if we embrace the process, if we trust that God is doing something deeper, we emerge from the transition stronger, wiser, and more aligned with His will for our lives. Think about the story of Joseph. His path was far from smooth. He was sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. Yet each of these difficult transitions was not a setback, but a setup for his ultimate purpose. Each season of hardship was shaping his character, teaching him humility, patience, and forgiveness. By the time Joseph was elevated to the position of power in Egypt, he was not only ready to fulfill his purpose, but was also a transformed man. God used his transitions to mold him into the leader he needed to be. And when he looked back at his life, he recognized that God had used everything, even the difficult and painful moments, to bring about his greater plan. Just like Joseph, we may go through seasons of testing where everything seems to be falling apart. But these seasons are not designed to destroy us. They are designed to refine us. Every transition is an opportunity for us to be shaped and molded into the people we are called to become. The person you are today is not the person you were meant to be tomorrow. The challenges you face in this season are the very things God is using to prepare you for what lies ahead. This transformation through transition is a process that takes time. We cannot rush it or force it. Just as a seed needs time to grow into a tree, our character needs time to develop and mature. But as we walk through the transitions with faith and trust in God's timing, we begin to see the fruit of our growth. The person we are becoming is stronger, wiser, and more equipped to fulfill the purpose God has for our lives. We should also remember that transformation is not always easy. It often requires us to let go of old habits, old mindsets, and even relationships that no longer serve us. But every time we let go of something that holds us back, we make room for something greater. Every transition, though difficult, is an opportunity to step into the next level of our calling, to become the person God has designed us to be. When God rewrites your path, He is not merely changing your direction. He is transforming your character, your heart, and your life. He is using the transitions, the challenges, and the moments of uncertainty to prepare you for the destiny He has in store for you. If we embrace the process and trust in His timing, we will emerge from every transition stronger, more aligned with His purpose, and ready to fulfill the unique role He has designed for us. Transformation through transition is not just a change of circumstance. It is a divine process that shapes us into who we were always meant to be. Faith is the fuel for the journey. It is the driving force that propels us forward through the changes, challenges, and uncertainties that life inevitably brings. As we walk through life, we encounter moments where everything seems to be in flux, when the path ahead is unclear, and when the world around us feels unstable. In those times, it is our faith that carries us through. It's faith that helps us embrace the rewriting of our path with confidence, knowing that God's hand is upon our lives, guiding us even when we can't see the road ahead. We must understand that faith is not simply a passive belief. It is an active force that compels us to move forward, even when the circumstances suggest that we should stop. Faith isn't about having all the answers or seeing the full picture. Faith is the courage to move forward in the face of uncertainty, trusting that God is directing our steps. It is in the unknown, the uncomfortable, and the uncertain moments that faith becomes our greatest ally. When we walk by faith, we acknowledge that we don't need to know everything because God knows everything. His wisdom surpasses ours, and His timing is perfect. Faith, at its core, is about trust. Trusting that God is who He says He is, and that He will do what He has promised to do. When we are facing challenges, when our plans fall apart, or when we find ourselves in unfamiliar territory, it's easy to feel overwhelmed or discouraged. But when we choose to walk by faith, we step into a place of confidence, not because of our own strength, but because we are confident in the One who holds our future. Consider the story of Abraham. God called him to leave everything familiar and go to a land that He would show him, even though Abraham didn't know where that land was or what would happen along the way. Yet, Abraham obeyed, and his faith in God's promise carried him through every uncertainty and trial he faced. Abraham's faith was not based on visible evidence. It was based on the trust that God would fulfill His promises. In the same way, when we walk by faith, we trust that God's promises are true, even when we can't see how they will unfold. Faith is not a one-time decision. It is a daily choice. Each day we must choose to trust God, even when the road ahead seems unclear. Each day we must remind ourselves that God's plans for us are good, even when things don't go the way we expect. Faith is the lens through which we see our circumstances. It allows us to see beyond the immediate challenges and difficulties and recognize that God is at work in our lives, even in the midst of uncertainty. When we walk by faith, we acknowledge that we are not walking alone. God is with us every step of the way, guiding us, strengthening us, and providing for us. Moreover, faith gives us the strength to persevere. Life's journey is rarely a smooth, straight line. There will be detours, roadblocks, and times when we feel like giving up. It's in those moments of struggle that faith becomes essential. It's through faith that we are able to keep going, even when the road is tough. Faith reminds us that we are not defined by our circumstances. We are defined by the one who is with us through every storm and every trial. When we choose faith, we choose to believe that the challenges we face are not the end of the story, but a part of God's bigger plan for us. As we walk by faith, we also learn to embrace the rewriting of our path. We come to understand that the changes we experience, though difficult, are part of God's divine plan for our lives. Each change, each redirection, and each challenge serves a purpose in the grand scheme of His will for us. When we choose to walk by faith, we surrender our own understanding and embrace the truth that God is in control. We may not always know why things happen the way they do, but faith gives us the assurance that God is guiding us through every twist and turn. Walking by faith also means that we are not living according to our own timeline. We must be willing to trust in God's timing, even when it doesn't match our own. In a world that values instant results, faith teaches us the importance of patience. God's timing is always perfect, and we must trust that He is never late, even when it feels like we are waiting forever. As we trust in His timing, we learn to let go of our own need to control the outcome. And instead, we place our full trust in the one who knows the end from the beginning. Faith, then, is the fuel that empowers us to keep moving forward, even when life doesn't make sense. It's the courage to trust when we can't see the whole picture. It's the strength to endure when the journey is difficult. And it's the confidence to know that no matter what, God is with us, guiding us, and working everything out for our good. When we walk by faith, we embrace the rewriting of our path with the assurance that God is not only in control of our future, but that He is actively shaping us through every change, challenge, and transition. Faith enables us to move forward with confidence, knowing that we are exactly where God wants us to be and that He will complete the work He has started in us. So, when the road ahead seems uncertain, remember that faith is the fuel for the journey. It's the unwavering trust in God that empowers us to walk boldly into the future He has prepared for us. Expect the unexpected. Life has a way of unfolding in ways we never anticipate, and often, God's plans for us are radically different from the ones we have carefully crafted. We may envision a life that fits within our own parameters, following a clear and predictable path. Yet when God rewrites our path, it frequently looks nothing like what we imagined. This is where the beauty of God's sovereignty shines. His ways are higher than ours, and His thoughts are deeper than our understanding. What may seem like an unexpected detour or an unplanned interruption in our lives is often the very path that leads us to our true purpose, fulfillment, and divine destiny. We tend to map out our lives, creating our own blueprints for success, happiness, and achievement. We set goals and make plans, believing that if we follow the right steps, we will arrive at our destination. But God does not operate by our timelines or our plans. His ways are so much grander, richer, and more intricate than we could ever conceive. Often, He takes us down paths we never would have chosen for ourselves. And it's in these unexpected moments that we discover His greater purpose for our lives. Take a moment to reflect on the journeys of biblical figures like Moses, David, or Esther. None of their paths were what they expected. Moses, raised as an Egyptian prince, never imagined he would lead the Israelites out of slavery. David, the youngest son in his family, never imagined he would be the king of Israel. Esther, a simple Jewish girl, never imagined that she would become queen and save her people. Yet in each of these cases, God's unexpected plan for their lives led them to fulfill their ultimate purpose. What seemed like unexpected turns, detours, or challenges turned out to be the very steps that positioned them for greatness in God's divine plan. When God rewrites our path, it often disrupts our sense of control and comfort. We may feel unsettled, unsure, and even fearful of what's ahead. The path we envision for ourselves seems safe, familiar, and comfortable. But God's ways are not meant to be safe or predictable. They are designed to stretch us, to refine us, and to shape us into the individuals we were created to be. The unexpected is often the means by which God takes us deeper into our destiny, leading us to places we could never have reached on our own. It's in the moments of the unexpected that we are forced to let go of our own plans and trust that God's plans are far superior. We may not understand why certain things happen or why our lives are taking a turn we did not expect, but we can rest in the confidence that God is leading us and that His plan is always for our good. Even when the unexpected feels like a disruption, it's actually an invitation to trust God in new ways and to see His divine purpose unfolding in our lives. God's unexpected plan for us may not always make sense in the moment. When we face challenges, setbacks, or circumstances that seem to derail our plans, we may be tempted to question God's timing or His intentions. But the truth is that God's perspective is far broader than ours. He sees the end from the beginning. He knows the intricate details of our lives, and He is working all things together for our good, even when we can't see the bigger picture. What looks like a detour might be a divine setup, and what feels like a setback might be preparing us for a breakthrough. The beauty of God's unexpected plans is that they lead us to a place of fulfillment and divine destiny. We may start off feeling confused, overwhelmed, or disoriented by the changes, but as we walk in obedience, trusting that God is in control, we begin to see how all the pieces fit together. The unexpected turns and challenges often turn out to be the very things that refine our character, strengthen our faith, and position us for the purpose God has for our lives. When we let go of our own limited vision and embrace the unexpected, we open ourselves up to a future that is far greater than anything we could have planned on our own. Just as a masterful artist sees the beauty in a painting long before the brushstrokes come together, God sees the final masterpiece of our lives. The unexpected twists and turns are part of the design that brings the picture of our lives into full clarity. When we embrace the unexpected, we align ourselves with God's greater purpose, knowing that He is working all things together for our good. God's ways are indeed higher than ours, and His thoughts are deeper. We cannot always understand why things unfold the way they do, but we can trust that every step, every turn, and every change is part of His perfect plan. When God rewrites your path, it may look nothing like what you imagined, but trust that it will always lead you to a place of fulfillment, purpose, and divine destiny. The unexpected is not to be feared, it is to be embraced. For it is in the unexpected that we discover the fullness of God's plan for our lives. A plan that exceeds our own understanding and leads us into the abundant future He has prepared for us. As we come to the end of this journey, let me remind you that God is in the business of rewriting our paths. What we once thought was a straight, predictable road may now seem like a series of detours and transitions. But these are not signs of failure. They are the fingerprints of God's divine intervention, leading us into the destiny He has meticulously crafted for us. His ways are higher, His thoughts deeper, and His plans far greater than anything we could ever imagine. When God rewrites your path, it's not just about changing your direction. It's about transforming you into the person you were always meant to be. It's about shaping your character, strengthening your faith, and preparing you for the divine purpose that only you can fulfill. Trust in the process, knowing that even when the road ahead seems unclear, God is leading you to a place of fulfillment and eternal significance. You may not understand the unexpected twists or the seasons of transition, but remember this: God's plan is always leading you to something far greater than what you could have ever planned on your own. Your purpose is not about your plans, it's about fulfilling His. When you walk by faith, trusting in His timing and embracing the unexpected, you step into a future that is filled with purpose, power, and divine destiny. So let go of your limited perspective, embrace the journey, trust the hand of God guiding you. Know that no matter where your path leads, it is never a detour. It is a divine alignment with the will of God for your life. The rewriting of your path is the beginning of your transformation. And in the end, you will look back and realize that the twists, the turns, the transitions, and the unexpected were the very things that brought you into the fullness of your purpose. Remember, God is rewriting your path, and He is leading you to a place of fulfillment, purpose, and divine destiny, far beyond anything you could have ever imagined. Trust Him. for He is the author and finisher of your faith, and His plan for you will always prevail.